Hi, everybody. How are you doing? Welcome back for writing part two, where we get into the meat of writing. So, we have started looking at one of the two types of essays you're going to see on the task test, informational and argumentative. So, last week, we went into the meat of what an argumentative essay should look like. Now, and I also gave you two essays, uh, which is the way that you are presented with them on task test is two separate essays which you must combine and make an argument around a central theme or main idea. So today I want to take a look at how that is actually written once you combine that essay, and then we'll evaluate it, or rather then we'll give you one of your own. I hope you are really working on this. I'd love to see you write something in an email and send it back to me. And if you are interested, I'm going to start teaching writing live twice a week. You can't practice writing without writing. There's just no way to do it. And to get better and to be able to have it a part of your muscle memory. So when you get that task test, you no matter what the prompt is that they give you, you're going to be able to start writing using a proper framework, using good, succinct language that says what it needs to say, but gives details with varied sentences, with good transitions, with a strong introduction, with a hook that catches interest, and a conclusion that wraps it up and takes it all home. So that's what I want to do. Again, please let me know by email, smoke signal, phone, whatever you need to do if you are interested in participating in these live lessons. So let's go ahead on and look at um, the two essays. I asked you to read them on your own, but we're going to take a look at them and then put them together. So this part is a little review. Okay, so let's take a look at this first part. This is the Tinker versus Des Moines case study. And in 1965, a group of students in Des Moines planned to publicly show their support for an end to the Vietnam conflict. The students decided to wear black armbands during the holidays to show their protest of the ongoing war. And this is true. Demonstrating their freedom of expression, they decided to wear their black armbands to school as well. The administrators of the Des Moines High School learned of the plan and decided to create a new policy that stated that any member of the student body wearing a black armband would be requested to take it off, with refusal to do so resulting in being sent home from school. On December 16th, 1965, Mary Beth Tinker and Christopher Eckhart, two students in the group, wore their black armbands around campus. Oh, I knew you would do that. Okay, let's go on and look at our. And they were sent home. The next day, John Tinker did the exact same thing and was also sent home. And the students didn't return to school until after New Year's Day, uh, the planned end of the protest, and they were suspended. With the support of their parents, the students sued the school district for violating their right of expression as in the First Amendment of the Constitution, and requested an injunction to stop the school district from disciplining them. The district court unjustly dismissed the case and held that the school's district actions were completely reasonable to maintain school discipline. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the Eighth Circuit affirmed the decision, and then the case went to the Supreme Court. Luckily, the Supreme Court held by a 7-2 margin that Tinker and the other students had the right to wear the armbands on the campus. And according to the court's majority opinion, the armbands represented pure speech, which entirely separate from actions or conduct or behavior. Because the students didn't take any violating actions, the armbands were a part of the pure freedom of expression. The court also held that the students did not lose their First Amendment rights to freedom of speech simply because they stepped on to school property. To justify the suppression of speech, the school officials needed to prove that the conduct in question would materially and substantially interfere with the operation of the school. They failed to do that. And in this case, it was obvious that the school district's action stemmed from a fear of possible disruption rather than any actual interference. The students were absolutely within their constitutional rights to express themselves freely, even though they were on a school campus. Therefore, students today can say or wear anything they want under the First Amendment. Adapted from Oye, ITT Chicago, Kent College of Law. And so here's the second essay. Remember that you're going to have to consolidate these, and if you're talking about speech and protected speech. Recently at the University of Iowa, a student artist put up a piece of art on campus. It was an exhibit that resembled a KKK member, and it was covered in newspaper clippings about racial violence. Though the student insisted the work of art was meant to be anti racism, this is a perfect example of why we need to have strong legislation against hate speech in America and why we need to stop permitting students from employing hate speech on school campuses and other institutions of learning. Many other countries around the world have laws against hate speech, along with laws against other forms of speech that violate basic human rights. International human rights law requires laws against hate speech. Protecting vulnerable minorities from hate speech is one of the most basic and essential human rights obligations, and all human rights organizations worldwide have emphasized this. But the United States fails to protect even the most basic of human rights, firmly establishing itself as a pariah state, one that is separated from the others, that falls far behind the rest of the world in terms of protecting fundamental human rights and democratic freedoms. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights states all are equal before the law and are entitled without any discrimination to equal protection of the law. All are entitled to equal protection against any discrimination in violation of this declaration and against any incitement to such discrimination. I know that's very wordy. In the case of Hagen versus Australia, the United Nations ruled that anything which offends or insults ethnic minorities is illegal, even if it's not intended to be. What this means is that the KKK piece of art at the University of Iowa was illegal racial discrimination under international human rights law. The United Nations has repeatedly stressed that none of these laws restrict, limit, or infringe upon freedom of speech. As a matter of fact, these laws preserve our freedom of speech. The US has laws against racial discrimination, but these laws only target discrimination in service and employment. In all other countries, anti discrimination laws ban the idea of racial discrimination, which means that all forms of racial discrimination, including hate speech, are outlawed. So the KKK exhibit at the University of Iowa would constitute illegal racial discrimination in America. Schools should ban hate speech on campus and not permit the freedom of expression to extend to expression that incites hatred, violence, murder, and genocide. Adapted from Tanya Cohen Thought Catalog. And so now you have to use this prompt to write a task practice essay. And so after you do the essay, you would get feedback. But what we're going to do is review the argumentative sample response. So how you would put those together is what we're going to take a look at today. How will we put it all together, right? So this is the sample response, and you we're looking at this to get an idea of what a high scoring essay would look like. And this follows the template we've provided that we worked on last week. You can go back into Classroom to find that. This is a short commentary which explains why it's um, an effective essay and why it will receive a high score. That comes after. So this is how you would put both ideas together. Let's go. The protection of our freedom of speech is an important concern in society today. The passages presented explore the popular opinions on freedom of speech in America. Remember, you're taking one side. On one side, people argue that controversial language and hate speech should not be protected, stating that free speech should not permit the freedom of expression to extend to expression that incites hatred, violence, murder, and genocide. Notice that's a quote. Americans should support the Supreme Court decision detailed in the first passage that fundamentally upheld the First Amendment, permitting full freedom of expression on school campuses because of the sacredness of our Constitution, the distinction between speech and action, and the uniqueness of American law compared to laws abroad. One important reason why the position outlined in the first passage is correct is that the American Constitution is a supreme document that should be upheld. The passage supports this by stating, in direct quotes, the students did not lose their First Amendment rights to freedom of speech simply because they stepped onto school property. Imagine if we decided that constitutional rights did not extend everywhere in America. We cannot pick and choose which constitutional rights we're going to afford our citizens and where we will protect our rights. The Constitution is the founding document of our country, so to limit students' free expression is to directly oppose, or go against the fundamental principles upon which America was built. What makes us united is the state's allegiance to the Constitution, which is why the Supreme Court support of Tinker was crucial. School administrations should take their cue from the Supreme Court and permit free expression on campus. So that means anything. Another reason why students should have freedom of expression is because there's a big difference between what someone says and what they do. According to the first passage, the Supreme Court ruled that the black armbands worn by Tinker and his friends represented pure speech. The school administrators did not fear the armbands, but rather they feared the potential response to the armbands. However, simply wearing a certain type of clothing is not the same as committing a crime. The second passage misses this point entirely by suggesting that the student in Iowa who created a racially insensitive piece of art was committing a crime. How is that a crime? Suppressing the students' abilities to express themselves through art stifles their creativity and infringes on their freedom. Mm. Furthermore, the second passage also presents irrelevant information discussing two international cases of hate speech being banned. The legal decisions of other countries, like those represented in the second passage, have no bearing on the legal proceedings of the United States. The United Nations, NATO, and other international groups within which the United States participates do not have legal jurisdiction over the United States, and the United States can withdraw from its international partnerships at any time. Therefore, referencing an Australian case in which the United States rules that anything which offends or insults ethnic minorities is illegal, is not directly addressing the problem. The other side is well intentioned, believing that hate speech causes discrimination and offends or insults ethnic minorities. And though this concern has merit, the second passage is ultimately incorrect in their limited definition of freedom of expression. The Constitution is a very important document, and when free speech is pure speech and not actual action, it is protected by this important document. International laws do not supersede the Constitution, and they have no bearing on the United States. In conclusion, the freedom of expression is a right afforded to all Americans, and the First Amendment protects our students to say, print, and wear anything they like. Well, that's a controversial opinion, but he used or she used a well thought out plan, and it's good. So we're going to stop here. We'll continue our commentary on why this is a good essay. We'll talk about this on Thursday. So you all be well, and hopefully I will see you in just a few minutes, if necessary, for science. Take care and be well.